The sand stung her face as the wind kicked up across the training range, grit biting against her skin. But Captain Sarah Kane's focus never wavered. The rifle in her hands refused to cycle. A jam. She kept her head low, eyes locked on the weapon as her fingers worked fast, clearing the chamber with the speed of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Every heartbeat counted. Around her, the shouts of soldiers and the sharp cracks of distant fire carved the air. The exercise was timed. Failure meant someone else took her slot, and she could not, would not, lose her place today. A shadow fell across her, tall and unmoving. She looked up briefly and saw Colonel Hartman, his face tightening in confusion as his eyes locked on her left hand. It was curled around the foregrip, knuckles taut, the glint of silver catching the desert sun. His gaze froze there, narrowing, the Reaper ring. For a fraction of a second, the world slowed. The colonel's jaw clenched, his expression flickering between recognition and disbelief. He had heard the stories, the rumors whispered in mess halls. But he never thought he'd see it worn here, especially not by her. Around them, soldiers kept moving, oblivious to the storm brewing in his mind. Sarah didn't flinch under his stare. She simply cleared the jam, racked the bolt, and kept her stance. The rifle barked once more, each shot tight and controlled, a rhythm as steady as her breath. She didn't need to explain the ring. Not yet. The others saw only a woman soldier, competent but unassuming, just another figure in tan fatigues. But the truth ran deeper. Years ago, she had stood in the dust of another battlefield. One, not for training, but survival. Her squad cut down to a single survivor. The ring had been pressed into her palm by her commanding officer moments before he bled out, his voice low and final. A symbol of those who walked away from missions no one was meant to survive, those who carried burdens no one else could name. Her return to service had been quiet, almost invisible. She never told the new recruits where she had been, or what she had done in the blacked-out corners of conflict. She didn't speak of the nights without sleep, when phantom footsteps crept through her dreams, or of the times she woke with her hands curled around a weapon that wasn't there. The army had a place for soldiers like her, on the edges in the shadows, where decisions were made without medals or headlines. Now, standing before a man whose career had been built in the full glare of ceremony and protocol, she saw the recognition in his eyes. The Reaper ring was not issued. It was earned in blood and silence, passed from one ghost to another. Hartman's tone shifted, low and edged with something that wasn't anger, more like unease. He questioned why she wore it, his words clipped, his authority heavy. Around them, a handful of soldiers slowed their pace, ears catching the tension. Nobody spoke, but the air grew thick with unasked questions. Sarah said nothing. Her silence wasn't defiance. It was protection, of herself, of the truth, of the people whose names were carved into her memory. She returned her weapon to ready position, eyes forward, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. The colonel stepped closer, perhaps thinking proximity would break her quiet. It didn't. He demanded an explanation in front of the unit, as though pressing her would expose her as an imposter. His voice carried across the sand, sharp against the stillness. Soldiers shifted uneasily, glancing between the two. She didn't look at him. Instead, she reached into a pouch at her vest and withdrew a folded scrap of laminated paper, worn, creased, the ink faded from sweat and time. She held it out between two fingers, and when Hartman took it, his hands paused mid-motion. The list of names was short: 4 men, 1 woman. Beside each, the same date, the same location. His breath caught when he reached the last name. He knew it. The tension cracked but didn't vanish. Hartman lowered his voice, asking where she had been since that day. Sarah gave the faintest shake of her head. Some truths weren't his to hear. She returned the paper to her pouch, her movements unhurried. Around them, the murmurs of the other soldiers faded to quiet respect. No one understood fully, but they felt the shift. The Reaper ring was no longer a curiosity, it was a marker. They had all heard of the men and women who never spoke of what they had done, who returned without fanfare, whose eyes held something they couldn't name. Hartman stepped back, his posture stiff, the heat of embarrassment creeping into his skin. He realized the mistake. His challenge had not been to her skill, but to her honor, and he had lost before it began. Sarah had not raised her voice, had not defended herself with stories or medals, only with silence and the weight of what she carried. In that moment, a quote formed in the minds of those who watched, though no one said it aloud: "Strength is proven not in the noise of victory, but in the quiet of survival." The rest of the drill passed without another word between them. Sarah finished her rounds, her precision flawless. When the final whistle blew, soldiers from her squad gathered loosely around her, not asking questions, just standing near. One by one, a few reached up and touched the brims of their helmets in a gesture of respect that didn't need words. Hartman dismissed the unit, his voice lacking the sharpness it had carried before. As Sarah walked away, the sun dipping lower, a young private jogged to catch up, his expression earnest. He didn't ask about the ring, just said it was an honor to serve with her. She gave a small nod, nothing more, but the weight of it settled deeply. That night, alone in her quarters, Sarah set the ring on the table beside her bunk. For a moment, she let herself trace the engraved lines with her fingertip, remembering the voices of those who had worn it before her. The room was silent, but in her mind, they were still there, standing in the dust, unbroken. She slid it back on before sleep took her. Some burdens you never put down, some honors you never speak aloud. And sometimes the loudest thing a soldier can do is remain silent. In the quiet spaces of the world, people like Sarah still walk among us. Unseen, uncelebrated, carrying stories they'll never tell. If you've heard one today, hold it with care. And if you meet someone whose silence feels heavier than their words, remember, you might be looking at the kind of strength that saves lives without anyone knowing. Wherever you are watching this from, share this story with someone who understands the cost of honor. And if you believe in silent heroes, stand for them, even when they say nothing at all.